Pacific Arts and Cultural Strategic Planning Meeting for Tuesday, November 10th, 2020 at 1 p.m. We have a quorum present of 7 members. And before we go to public testimony, I'll call on, is Mihana here to do the pule?
Hi, aloha.
Hi, Mihana.
Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Mahalo no ho'i ho'omole kako ina ako kako nei puni ka honua no mako na alaka'i ke ia papahana nei o ia ho'i o Festival of the Pacific Arts. Nā kupuna ia makua nā kua alaka'i mai ia mako I ke ia halawai nei me ho'okahi mana'o. Ka mea nui? Ke aloha. O ke aloha. He mana'o nui. Mai ke ia kihi a ke la kihi. Mai ke ia pai a ke la pai. Holo o ko puni mai. Ka pakipika. O ia ho'i. O ko kako hana I ke ia la. Kako o mai. Kokua mai. Kia'i mai. No ke ia. Ua mahalo no ho'i ia kako a pau I nā po'e alaka'i. Ai nā kua malama pū. Mai ia mākou kekahi o nā po'e hele ole I ke ia awakea nei. No mākou ke kuli ana mālama ho'omau ana ko Hawaii. Pai aina. Me ka viva ole. Me ke aloha nui. A me ka mana'o holo mua. Me ke ia hui nei. Ai kokua kāko'o kekahi I kekahi. O ke ia ko leo ha'a. Mai ia mākou ia oko. Oi ho'i. Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo. Amen.
Mahalo. Thank you for that wonderful pule. And now we'll go on then to public testimony on agenda items. So I'm going to take public testimony at this point. If there's anyone in the public that wishes to testify on any of our agenda items, please give me your name and who you're with, if you're with any organizations, and I'll give you a couple of minutes. So we're open for public testimony. Is there anyone there? Okay. I'm going to open it at the end again for public testimony, so maybe people can comment on what we've talked about. So the first one we're required to do upfront. The second one we're adding in because it makes more sense, yeah? So one is the law and one is common sense. Okay. If we can go to item number 3 then, approval of the October 2020 meeting minutes. They were distributed to everyone, so do we have any comments or corrections? Okay, if not, is there a motion to accept?
I move.
It's been moved by Representative Onishi. Is there a second?
A second, Mapuana.
Mapuana De Silva seconds. Okay, I'm going to do a roll call vote. Is there any further discussion on this? Okay, if not, I'm going to do a roll call. I'm going to go across from the members I see. So I vote aye. Commissioner Kalani Ka'ana'ana.
Aye.
Commissioner Representative Richard Onishi.
Aye.
Commissioner Mihana Lin. Hines, sorry, I'm on my glasses. And I know this.
I was like, is there another Mihana on here? Yeah, aye.
Thank you. Jamie Lam.
Aye.
And Commissioner Mapuana De Silva.
Aye.
Okay, and then Commissioner Monty McCumber.
aye, and congratulations to those who won their races recently.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and I think that's it for the commissioners. So we have a unanimous vote of 7. Thank you. Now we'll go to item number 3, Commissioners' Organization Chart and Roles and Responsibilities. That's this piece I was emailed out. We looked at it last time, so I'll turn it over to Kalani.
Yep. Thanks, Senator. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
My neighbor is doing yard work, so I just want to make sure that the weed whacker is not coming through too strong. Ilihia, if we could go ahead and pull up the Kuleana chart, please. Thanks so much. And we have a slide deck like we normally do. It has the same sort of structure, but I'm just going to jump right into it. Essentially, our homework for today is to go over this chart and hopefully finalize what become our areas of responsibility as commissioners. That way we can sort of take the reign of our areas and move forward with the actual implementation, as opposed to sort of the strategic convenings we've been having over the last several months. So in starting, again, this is what we developed in those earlier meetings. The homework was to go home and make your amendments or changes. Ilihia is going to go ahead and make those live. So I'll go ahead and open the floor to commissioners if you guys want to start one by one, and we'll go through each of our sections and we can clarify that way. Anybody want to go first? Monty, thank you.
I did review it, and aloha to everyone. I didn't have any questions. And for me, I think it's pretty clear for me understanding what the kuleana is. I know that the word or the third bullet, network weaver, is new, although I don't think it's a specific duty, but I think because I wasn't at the meeting again, if we calamai, but that it's to help bridge things, or so I just had that one question.
Of course, I can kind of, I did this to you. The role of a network weaver, I think, is one that like you're getting at, and its name is implied. Because of your role as our liaison to the SPC and to the various working groups, whether it be on the regional cultural strategy or even the working group looking at the future FestPACs and what a hybrid festival could look like, our hope and intention is that you can help us bring those things together that are happening both sort of regionally and then locally here in Hawaii as it pertains to the 13th festival. So it really is truly just trying to be that bridge and kind of reinforces that idea of your liaisonship, if you will.
Hi, definitely. Thank you for that clarification. And na'ue hana. And then I only have one more thing to put in, but I don't think it's relevant for this discussion, although I think we might get to it. And I think that might be on the agenda too, but I know for the other members of FestPAC too, the identification of a festival director seems important to them. And even though we work differently, I still feel that for some reason for them, that comes across as an important key item for them. So I'll just mention it here and then I'll jump off to continue the process we're on. Mahalo.
Oh, thanks, Monty. And those can be things that live in that tricky items box. It's sort of our parking lot, if you will, for ideas. And so maybe we can go ahead and put it there. And as we kind of move along, we'll figure out how to clarify and continue to sort of refine what we've got above. Thanks, Monty. Who'd like to go next? Representative, thanks.
Yeah, I'm fine with my area of Kuleana along with Senator. I just had one point I wanted to get some clarification on is when we're talking about fundraising, I know part of what we were doing before was making presentations, but also trying to get commitments. So I just wanted some clarification between what we're doing and what Kalani is, under your area, you have fundraising. So I wasn't sure how that relates to each other.
Oh, thanks, Representative. That's a great question. The way I was envisioning it is a little bit like what we were doing, where I was coordinating, creating the slide deck that you folks would use and that we would send out. But essentially, all of the commissioners would have some role in fundraising in our various networks, but I would be the central hub to coordinate and make sure that multiple people weren't making the same ask of the same or different ask of the same org, and sort of to kind of keep us all organized. But I would leverage all of us as commissioners in our various networks to sort of make those presentations.
Okay, so everything sort of clears through you, yeah, Kalani, before
Yes.
we actually either make the ask, or if someone approaches us, then we go to you and say, hey, you know, so-and-so has approached me, they want to help out, etc.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Like air
Got
traffic
it.
control.
Yeah, and I'll follow after Representative Onishi because it's joint. I agree that this is our area. We'll work hard at it, and thank you for that clarification. So I like that very much. Thank you.
Awesome.
Kalani Ka'anana.
Mhm.
I have a suggestion in their box. Can we change omiyagi package to makana aloha?
Sure.
Thank you. We're getting our cultures a little confused here.
Happy to make the change. Auntie, do you want to just segue into sort of your thoughts? I know your box is empty, but I think we kind of know why. But do you want to go next?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't add anything to my box, but I just want to bring up a few things that I thought of that I didn't see here. And one is uniforms for all of the workers and important people. And I don't know if that comes under you, Kalani Ka'ana'ana, because you're doing merchandising, so it would seem like it's kind of the same ballpark. And then I noticed you have requests clarity on symposiums, and symposiums are under Snowbird's purview as well. So just wanted to make that, you know, at some point we got to clarify what the confusion is or what's happening there. And then on under Misty's box, preliminary paperwork from delegates to create credentials. I just want to kind of maybe put a box around that because to me, the credentials part is really important because that information goes to the committee that's going to create the credentials, and there has to be a certain amount of security around that. So I'm totally fine with Misty doing it, but she has so much, her box or whoever's going to be doing that has so much in their kuleana. I didn't know. I'm not just. I think just if we can just keep aware of that item as we move forward. I don't think we have to do anything with it now, unless she wants it moved or somebody else sees it as their kuleana. But just so that we kind of identify it as something we have to keep coming back to, and it should be a really important decision on how that gets handled.
Yeah, and Auntie, might I make a suggestion? Might we just sort of simplify that bullet in Auntie Misty's area to credentialing?
Yeah.
I think credentialing as a committee and a function is just in and of itself, and whether that continues to live with Auntie Misty or not, we can decide.
Yeah.
But I think credentialing as a whole is going to have impacts across everything, right? From housing and food to the transportation folks, security.
Why? Because it's all encompassing. So you can just say credentials rather than credentialing. And then I have a bunch of stuff I put in the box. I just added to the bottom. And these may or may not, you may or may not want to find a space for them. Under Snowbird, you have ceremonies protocol, but protocol is more than just a ceremony. So I don't know if Snowbird's going to take all protocol, because there's protocol in every single thing we do, right, Kalani? Yeah. So if she's going to take care of it for the ceremonies, that seems to fit in her box. But what about everything else? So is there, some kind of committee that's going to handle protocols where everybody who needs to be have some kind of a workshop regarding this in their job, their kuleana for the festival? Is there a place that's going to happen? So that was my.
I think that's really good. Yeah.
and I had credentials, so we fixed it over there. The third thing is liaisons. That's nowhere here. So that's another tricky item. Not sure where that goes. And even though Senator and Rep have Makana Aloha in their box, I think that I don't know if that there's different kinds of Makana Aloha. I guess that's what I want to say. There's official country gifts that we give from government to government. There's gifts for individuals like the heads of state, heads of delegation, all the important key people in a delegation. And then there are gifts for all of the delegates. So I don't know if that's going to come under all of those Makana Aloha under their box, or if we're going to separate it in another way. So if we could just put it in the tricky items so that we remember to come back to it. And as we get closer, like I said, all of these things that I'm bringing up aren't nothing that we have to worry about right now. And then we don't have the Hawaii delegation under here anywhere. And the festival village in and of itself, I don't know if the festival village should come under Snow or Misty, who already have a whole bunch of stuff. If it fits in Snowbird's column, or it's going to fit in your column, or just to put there as to assign it somewhere as we know the direction that we're going. That's all. Just those things to add to our tricky items.
Yeah, and I suspect, and thank you for that. I suspect over time we'll refine these things, and as we get into the work, I think there'll be intersections where we'll have to or be forced to clarify these things.
Right.
And the beauty is we have the time to do it now.
Right. Yeah, and that's so that these are just things that, as I was looking over this, I know that we have to take care of. So, just wanted to put it somewhere.
Lonnie?
Yes, Rep.
I thought that, well, the way we were doing it in the past, previous, was that on the Makana Aloha, we were looking at acquiring it for everybody. So the heads of state would be one type, the head of delegation would be another type, and the delegates would be another type. So if I'm not mistaken, Senator, right, we're out to try to
I think
fulfill all of those requirements. So I think
so
you can put it under us. I think that was the intent of what we were going to do.
Yeah, so the intent was for us to acquire it, and then we collectively figure out the distribution. So we're just going to get stuff, and then we figure out how it all goes out.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that. I'd like to go next. Jamie.
I'll go next. Can I just start with a question though?
Absolutely.
Mapuana, can I just, can you explain liaisons? When you say liaisons, I just want to get a better idea what that means, or what those roles are.
Yeah, so the structure of the festival is that every delegation, every delegation, even including the Hawaii delegation, gets a number of liaisons, and the number of liaisons depends on two major things. One is how big the delegation and the second one is if they speak. In our case, if they're English speaking or French speaking or Spanish speaking. So the delegations that come that don't speak English, because we are primarily English, would require probably more liaisons than the ones that speak English. And it's a requirement. And the jobs of the liaisons they're actually the ones that make sure that the bus is there to pick up everybody, that if there's a problem with the food. So our liaisons are really the ones who are going to contact our heads of the different areas. So if there's a problem with somebody sick, the liaison would call the person in charge of the medical team or 911. They would know the procedures. The liaisons would know the procedures for any kind of problem that would come up, and it would go through them. So it wouldn't come directly from the delegation to our heads of committees. It would come from our liaisons to the heads of committees, and they would make sure So their job, the liaison's job, is to make sure that that question or that problem is solved.
Got it. Okay.
And then it's you know, when the delegation arrives, the liaisons are there to tell them where to go, what bus to get on, if they're going to have a little ceremony at the airport before they leave, all of that kind of stuff. They're the coordinators.
So sort of the concierge for that delegation for their whole stay, and, so to speak.
And the liaisons
take care of everything.
Right. It's a really important job because the liaisons can make or break your festival. If you don't have very well trained liaisons, or liaisons that have, or if you have liaisons that don't have very high standards as far as behavior and how they carry themselves and how they speak to people, then your festival can just not be fun at all. So in some ways, I think the liaisons are more important even than the venues and the accommodations.
I suspect we'll have people clamoring for certain delegations to be the liaison for.
Right. And just as an example, the very first festival I went to in 2000 in New Caledonia was a French-speaking country, and we had we had a team of about 8 liaisons, but 2 in particular. One, they both spoke French. One was a Kanaki, native of New Caledonia, and the other one was actually Tahitian, whose family had moved there. And we are still very good friends with them. They've come here to visit. We've gone there to visit. One of the relatives of the Kanaki liaison, his niece, carries my name. So these people are really key. They're the ones who are going to make the delegations feel that welcome and make sure their time here, everything goes smoothly with as few glitches as possible, and that the visiting delegations really get a feel for what it's like to be part of the Hawaiian community.
Thanks, Santi, for sharing that.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it. Okay, so yeah, looking at the DBED Kuleana, I think we are fine with all of that. I have one question and then a comment about 2 things. I think because DBED currently has the contract with the university for the dorms, that's still an active contract. And we also have a contract with the convention center. So there's going to be a little bit of crossover, I guess, technically the contractor for some of those services. So, I see we would have to work with Mehana and either Misty or anyway, whoever is, overseeing anything at the convention center. So that's just a comment. I just on my own, in my own notes, I just noted that we'll work together in those areas. I did have a question about the unified procurement. I'll say what my understanding is, and just wondering if that's the understanding of the rest of the commissioners. And so when I read unified procurement, I take that to mean that DBED would be sort of the central point to procure various services and whatnot. So we would be the point from which that would take place. Is that everyone else's understanding, or was there a different definition of that? Also, I guess it also depends on, because right now, up until this point, all the funding has been state funding that we've spent, that has come through, legislative appropriations. So of course it's coming to DBED's account, so to speak. So also looking at where monies might come from. We do have the trust account that's still open to receive any, donations and so forth. So we would be able to utilize that. But Anyway, so that was just my question, just for clarification on the unified procurement. If our understanding is correct, or if there's anything else to add to it or clarify.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. If I get out of line, people jump in, let me know. But I think that is a good understanding of unified procurement. You're the one that's got the money, the statutory sort of role to support the commission. So I think certainly, like when I think we use the word unified, I think what we were getting at was this idea: if I have to order chairs for the opening and closing ceremony, and Misty needed to order for the festival village, that we should procure it as once, right? So that we have those cost savings and volume. And
Okay.
so I think that's what we meant, but I don't know. Anybody got any other thoughts on that? Okay. There was something else you asked earlier, and I can't remember what it was. But if I remember, I'll come back to it.
It was the fact that they have the UH Dorm and Convention Center.
Yes.
Does it have to do with that?
Yeah. As my understanding is that, Jamie, you guys are actually involved with everybody.
Right, that's true. I mean, ultimately.
To keep track of the money, but you have to interact and work with everybody else because they need money to do what they need. Is that right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay.
And Jamie, I think that's perfectly reasonable, right? Again, because you guys are sort of the admin and fiscal and legal and procurement front. It's much like I work with strategies as a contractor, and then Mehana might work with June or UH, etc. So I think you might hold the contract, but you're going to work with the commissioner who has the kuleana for the thing.
Exactly. Okay.
So
Thank you.
Maybe instead of meeting administration, just general administration.
Awesome.
Okay.
I think I've got all the other commissioners. Did I miss anybody? I think I got everyone. Okay, my turn. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to get off mute. Yeah, so mine's looks like that's how it fits all together. At first I was like, catering, no, but then of course, right? Because they gotta eat. Yeah, at UH, and they gotta eat, throughout the day. So yeah, no, totally. And then that transportation, that was meant to be the transportation for overall getting them everywhere, right? Anywhere and everywhere. Okay. Yep.
Thanks,
and then
Mehana.
Jamie,
Thanks,
we gotta talk. About UH.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Mehana. Thank you for that. On my area, I'm still good with them. The one though that I would like to have removed from my list is the symposium one. I think that was a comment that should have ended up in notes, ended up as kuleana. But I think those symposiums ended up in the programming section with Snowbird. So, but other than that, I think I'm good with this section for my kuleana as well.
Can we add uniforms to you?
It's there. Yep.
I'll never look good. Sorry.
No worries. We're making the changes live. I do also want to kind of call out, in the tricky items section, and I'm wondering if we can kind of take care of some of this. The motorcade, right, I think is a little bit in two worlds, but I want to be really clear about it because there's a security function to a motorcade, and then there's a little bit of the protocol function to it, and then the liaison. So it's going to be one of those weird ones, and I just want to kind of call our attention to it because I think it's a really good example of where it's multiple people's kuleana that have to come together seamlessly. And I want to use that as a bridge to kind of clarify this list a little bit further, more in the way of process in terms of how we deal with those overlaps, right? If we thought about it like a Venn diagram and there's something that hits multiple circles, how do we want to deal with that as a commission? Do we sort of bring it up as an agenda item to clarify it individually on its own? Or do we sort of take it offline amongst responsibility areas to coordinate individually?
Okay, well, I think, good point. So it depends on, if a head of state comes in or head of government, they need to request from Secret Service and they'll provide, the driver's security, motorcade, etc. But if it's a minister level, then we're responsible for it, right? And again, that leads us back to, are we doing what they normally do, which is a car and a driver and all of that, or are we trying to figure out something different? So it just depends what level they come in at, right?
Well, no, I think my question is a little bit, maybe that's the example we could use, but I guess my question is, how do we want to deal with the parking lot issues, right? So we're going to have them, they're going to be things that have different bubbles of influence. I guess my question to us as commissioners now is, what's the process for us to resolve and clarify? Is it to agendize it for a future meeting and then deal with it publicly together as a full commission? Do we leverage established PIGs that already exist to address them? It's more the process question of when we have something like motorcade, how do we want to handle that together?
I would like us to look at what the second option, look at the best practices and how it's been done before so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just take the best practices.
Okay, so do you want to do that as an agendized item on a full commission meeting or in a PIG?
Maybe a PIG would be easier because, then the group sorts, the PIG sorts out all the details and comes back and says, here's what we recommend, right?
Okay.
Before you make that decision, I have a question.
Sure.
So what's in everybody's box is their kuleana, but they're not going to do the work. They're going to have people in charge. That's what I'm hoping of each item under their name, who's actually going to be doing the work. Are those people that we put in charge of these different areas of kuleana, are they able to meet and make these decisions without legally? Because if it's making the decisions, yes,
no,
Margaret?
we make the decisions.
Right, but as far as the sunshine law, of course, any person who is not a board member can meet all they want. And as far as, I could see this organizational chart as a delegation, and if that's what the board chooses to look at it and decide that it's a delegation, then you wouldn't necessarily need to establish PIGs and whatnot. But you are actually delegating, these board members with the ability to make decisions but that's entirely up to you guys, right?
Thanks, Margaret, for that. And Auntie Mapu, I guess maybe to clarify, I think our intent, right, is to build the umbrella and the kako'o under each of us, whether that's volunteers, right, that help us achieve these kuleana versus paid contractors. That's obviously the crunch, right? We don't have the money for paid. I think if your point was you set up your hui or your komike and they're non-commissioned members, then those komike could go meet on their own. And what I'm hearing from Margaret, I think, is, yeah, as long as they're not commissioners, they can meet and sort of adjudicate what they got to do. And then for us, if it needs to get to a commission level, we could just meet appropriately as a commission.
Right. And each commissioner is responsible for the people under them, that they know what agenda items would need to come to the commission and what decisions they could. I mean, they wouldn't make it independently of conferring with their commissioner. The commissioner has to know everything that they're doing, but then at some point, if the decision needs to come back to the commission or the discussion, then that commissioner would ask to be put on the agenda. Is that make?
I think so. And Margaret, please chime in if I'm getting this wrong, but I think it would just be really important for us as commissioners to understand that, like, we as commissioners wouldn't be meeting and discussing together, right? Like, we wouldn't be with our people who are helping us and in the meeting. Like, if Auntie Mapu and I were in a meeting talking about an overlap, the two of us having that conversation, if it were to come to a vote, would be in violation. So I think it's really important that we separate commissioners from that work.
I see. Yep.
Yeah, and that's where I think this organizational chart might help us to be able to move along with our things that need to be done and not be strapped by commissioners having to do the work and having to, the sunshine law and all of that.
Members, can I just ask a technical question? So I'm getting texts from people saying this is not being broadcast on Facebook. I thought that we had worked this out before. So can I ask
It was, yes, Senator, and apologies. It was worked out, but when they tried to connect again today, it wasn't working. We thought it was an issue of using a paid account to a paid Zoom account versus unpaid. And it was working fine when it was being tested last week. And unfortunately, it's not working. So it's being recorded and will be uploaded as we did with the last meeting.
Okay,
So
so
we'll
let's work this out. Let's make sure this gets done, because I needed to know this at the very beginning, because I have people that were waiting on Facebook and they expected to see it there live. So we've let a lot of people down, and it's your guys' fault, Tibet. So get your act together, get this together and get it done, and do not let this happen again. Okay, we can move on.
Thanks, Senator. So I appreciate the discussion we've had. I thought it was important as we sort of wind down on the Kuleana chart. Now that we have some pretty good clarity, I think consensus is sort of supporting where the chart is now. But I thought it was important as we wind up that conversation to have a process by which we would sort of figure out the tricky items. So just to recap and to restate it for clarity, things that end up in the tricky item box or that come up later on that need coordination should happen at a sort of support level, or sort of, I'm going to use bunny ears, staff level, and let them meet and convene and work out solutions and then suggest them to us as a commission. And should something need to come up, we can agendize it as appropriate. Does that sound good? Awesome. I see nods.
Yeah, thank you. And Kalani, thank you for thinking this through, because, I think us understanding this now really saves us a lot of time in the future. So mahalo for thinking that through.
Of course. Any other last comments or questions on the Kuleana chart? And then if so, I want to go ahead and turn this over to Senator for a formal vote to adopt the chart as present, and just understanding that if we need to change it moving forward, we can always revisit and revise. Go ahead, Auntie Moku.
I'm just wondering, I know that Misty's not here, but I think Kanoi is here, and I'm wondering if Misty sent any information with Kanoi about her we might want to listen to.
Yeah, Kanoi.
Actually, I was right before Kumu asked if I had anything. I was actually just going to ask a couple of questions, and a couple of questions. Trust us. We are happy to get rid of credentials if that is something that we want to put someplace else. That is absolutely not opposed by Misty at all. But I do have a couple of questions, and I think it's great discussion about the motorcade being an example, because that would also be an example of a difference in what HPD would say we need and what maybe whoever is in charge of protocol would say we need, and how we go about doing that, whether or not, as we work that out. Motorcade, we would have understood to be on our list, just because that is an HPD ordeal. And if somebody could clarify for me what the difference is between venue security and then all of security. I think when Misty and I had discussions about this, we thought that both of those would have been under the Kuleana of Misty as well. But if it is different, happy to put it somewhere else.
Kanoi, thank you. Both points are well taken. I mean, I think, you're right, because all the different manifestations of motorcade, for example, eventually end up with the city, right? Because it's the police, it's the local. So, I mean, I think the tricky items, if we put venue security and motorcade with you guys, because that's technically where it belongs. Thank you for volunteering.
Yeah, I mean, and whether or not it becomes under us because we're using HPD, or under us because we need some special duty because we would like to provide that for a head of delegation or whatever that might be, that may not sort of technically according to FBI or whatever need it, it would still be under us. So yeah, happy to I mean, not happy to take it, but just, makes sense that it would be under us. And I think that if there's a difference between venue security and regular security, let me know if I sort of don't understand the differences.
I think you got it spot on. I think what I would suggest for us is this is an example like where I'm taking fundraising, but everybody kokuas. I think in the same way,
Right.
HPD has the responsibility to coordinate security and actually has that legal authority to coordinate it. But they may delegate it to UH campus security, for example, at the dorms, versus if we hired a private contractor to secure the festival village, or if you just did special duty, but it would all run through maybe Anti-Mistia and HPD as sort of that hierarchy.
In that security hub, yeah, absolutely.
I agree completely, Moricade, and all security come under Misty. And what about Monty? Would you consider taking credentials on your side, because it kind of goes along with all the communication stuff? Just asking.
Okay.
I would totally love to help you with that.
Commissioner McCumber, as much as we would love to put it there, and we would, the only reason why I can remember it was on our list is because when we had started to have discussions with Kumumana'o and the arrivals and all of the coming in and things of the sort, it was actually our team of HPD people who were saying, if there's some credential things, we need to be involved with that and with understanding how that's created and the handing out, so that we can make sure if we're in charge of security in general, then the credentials are a big part of how we can maintain that security. And that I can remember was why it was on our list. But we're happy to help provide the HPD and security for the credentials, but it lay in Commissioner McCumber's list of things to do. All the rest of the, I'm sure I don't even know what goes into it, but all the paperwork and things that go into making the credentials, we're happy to give that part away and then maintain the security aspect and then just fill HPD in. And that'll be one of those places that we call ko'o, so that we can make sure we all have the same information.
Right. Kanoy, the way it works actually is the credentials that are created will specify what areas people have access to. And I think I'm speaking for Monty that whoever's taking care of credentials, I think it is important to have somebody from HPD in on that committee to make sure that all of their worries are taken care of. But you guys don't actually have to create the credentials, because you have so much on your plate already. And creating credentials in itself is a huge job. That's why I gave it to Monty. And I really do want to help you with it, though.
I think credentialing is another good example, Auntie, of where credentialing has to be centralized. But
Yes.
For example, my media work, I'm going to come to Monty, for example, to credential the media who are allowed to have media passes, right? And so I'll set up with Monty and that committee the requirements to be credentialed as media. But ultimately, it's still Monty's planet of credential then.
Right. And the great thing is most of Monty's stuff is done in advance. And so this credentials thing will be his big job as we get closer to the festival. And I think he'll be able to have a team big enough to handle this. In the past, at every festival, we've had problems with credentials, and most of it because the countries aren't prepared for the amount of work and the amount of last minute work that happens. And so there was one festival we got our credentials the day we departed, and we don't want that to happen.
Actually, if I can on this particular point, because we have so much time, I mean, we sort of, this is festival 2.0, right, for us. Because we have some time, and there are companies that, that do this very well. But I think that we may have the time to do the pre-credentialing and issue the cards and all of that, for some of them even before they arrive. I'm just thinking out loud. but we do have an opportunity to really make it different. And with the types of technologies out there today on how to do credentialing, I think we could find somebody to do it very well. If we can find the money. If not, we're all there doing it, ourselves.
The label printer is jammed. No, just kidding.
Your
No,
QR
thanks,
code doesn't work. Yeah.
No, thank you. I want to keep us moving. We're getting a little too in the weeds of each of this stuff. I think what's important, though, is the big buckets are pretty much decided. And then we've sort of agreed by consensus about a process about how to handle these overlaps or if there's, a lack of clarity. Representative Onishi.
Yeah, sorry, Kalani. I just wanted one clarification because normally in an event like this, you have a registration, that, in other words, people check in, they get their credentials, throughout the whole event. There's some location where, there's information, there's, registration for people who come late, etc. If there's going to be any kind of public registration, that all happens there. Is that something that we have in here, or is that not normally done? And,
I'm going to let Auntie Mapu take a swing at this one because I see her.
Yeah. This is handled very differently, Rep.
okay.
All of the credentials go to the head of the delegation. So it's the head of the delegation that the head of delegations that Monty will be in contact with for all of the people coming from their delegation. All of the information will be sent on a secret server to us with photos and passport information and everything. We'll know which area of expertise they're coming to participate in, what their arrival information and departure information, if they have any food allergies or anything like that. We'll probably also ask for their immunization records and those kinds of things. So we'll have all of that. That's all done up front. And yes, Senator, we do our best to get that information well in advance. But you know how the Pacific is.
It'll be 3 days before.
Do probably, I would say, let's be happy with 3/4 of it being done in advance and being correct. And the other quarter is going to be, oh, wrong, the person changed, now this person came with us, because they're going to get to the airport and it's going to be somebody different that gets on the plane. You can't do that in Hawaii, but you can do that in some of these small countries. So yes, we will get as much of it done as we can. We will give deadlines well in advance of when we need them, with the knowledge that there's always last minute. So the way it goes is all of the information comes to a central location and only through heads of delegations. That's all. Nobody else. Nobody else is allowed. There's no information that's sent is accepted unless it comes through a head of delegation. Unless we set up, if the heads of delegations send the list and we set up a separate portal where each delegate can register through that portal so that their credentials are here when they arrive, then that's up to us whether we do it that way or we do it through the heads of delegations sending the spreadsheet with all the information, and then we create the credentials from there. But all of the credentials will go to the heads of delegation, and it's up to us when they get it. We've gotten it anywhere from on arrival, like I said, to the day we depart.
Thanks, Auntie.
And so there's no outside registration. If we're going to have, you're going to have media stuff where the media people are going to come and they have to register in order to be able to take pictures and do all that, and that's separate. That's in a whole media dedicated area, and that's nothing to do with credentials. So yes, Kalani is going to come for certain media credentials, and then there are others that are going to happen when people arrive. Right, Kalani? Ka'anana?
Yeah, and again, I want to just kind of keep us moving. I hope, Rep, was that enough clarity though? Like the registration is credentialing, but it's a little bit different. Okay. Okay. Any other burning last minute? I want to throw this out of my box. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Is there a witness that says it should not be so?
Okay. Based on that, I'll ask for a vote on this, that we accept the chart as we just worked on, with the understanding that as we need to, we'll have to change it as we move along. So is there a motion?
I so move. Wanted to
second.
we accept it.
Mapuana, thank you. Mapuana moves and Richard seconds. I'm going to do a roll call vote and I have to change my screen. Wait, how do I do this? I can see everybody. Okay, I'm just going to go across. I vote aye. Kalanika Anana,
Aye.
Mapuana de Silva,
Aye.
Richard Onishi,
Aye.
Monty McCumber,
Aye.
Jamie Lam,
Aye.
Mihana Hein.
Aye.
Okay, and I think I got everyone, right? I got Monty.
Yes, thank you, Senator.
Okay, so we have everyone. It's unanimous vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Ilihia, if we can go ahead and switch over to the deck. And if we can hop over to slide 6, please. And if I could just take this moment to thank Ilihia publicly for helping us today. He probably would hate that I'm doing this, but he and his wahine just bought a home and they're in the middle of transitioning their homes.
Oh.
So he's like working off cardboard box kind of thing without furniture or anything. So mahalo Ilihia for taking care of us
Hello,
today.
congratulations.
Mahalo, Ilihia.
I just hoping the brothers not come deliver the ice box in the middle of this. We'll see.
Okay.
You must be from Neighbor Island to say icebox.
Right?
Ice box. That's what I grew up with. Ice box.
So we all have them in our homes?
Yep.
Yep.
Well, only on Oahu you have a refrigerator, yeah?
So funny. Alrighty. So we went over our first big hopeful outcome today, which was our organizational chart in Kuleana. I want to go ahead and move into the matrix of cultural and traditional practices to be offered. Those were our offering practices. Ilihia's converted them to slides. So we'll sort of go through them one more time and again, kind of refine either their definition where there is or isn't one and see how far we get with that today. So Ilihia, next slide, please. And again, I also want to just start as we begin this conversation. This is very much Snowbird's area and she was unable to join us today. So I would recommend to the commission that we defer any formal action on this until she's here and able to give us her mana'o directly. But I do want to kind of run through and see if we want to refine definitions or organization of this as we move forward today. So I just want to go ahead. Okay. I just want to open this one with oral traditions. Again, this is how we sort of reorganize some of the other buckets from last time. It is inclusive of drama, theater, and then performance presentations like slam poetry or storytelling. And those are the definitions. And for clarity, what these will do is we'll take these specific definitions and create the form that the intent to participate gets, filled in with. So, bless you. Anybody got any thoughts on oral traditions as a category?
No, it looks okay to me.
Okay, thanks. See a couple of nods and thumbs up. And again, we don't have to decide on this today, so this is just if you see something and want to call it out. I'm gonna go ahead and move into music. It was sort of inclusive of things like a kanikapila, choral singing, instrumentation. Any problems or additions or deletions?
No.
Well, and is it possible to get these slides emailed to us for us to have more time to look over them? Since we're not gonna take any action on them today, and then anybody who wants to will have the time to look at it more clearly.
Yeah, and Auntie, these were included in the minutes from the last meeting. I know that was a really big packet, but there's a Word doc format of this that are in the minutes that we approved today.
Okay.
And we just copied and pasted it into the slide deck, so we had something to work off.
All right, Kalamayo.
No, not at all. It's plenty of information, and so it's kind of all over the place. But we thought we'd try to throw it in some slides. And then in particular, these red items are sort of the outstanding comments or thoughts that we had. So if you see font in red. Okay, hearing none for music, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to dance.
Yeah, looks good to me.
Okay, so I'm just gonna keep rolling through these, and then you guys stop me, right? If there's something that's like, whoa, 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 what is this? I think that might be easier. Next slide, please. Okay, mixed media.
Academic works includes like dissertations as well, or articles.
That was the thinking, yeah, or journal entries. And I think in some ways the published works are bigger than just academic. I think that's why they were sort of separate.
Okay.
Visual arts.
Looks good.
Okay. Indigenous languages. Okay, next slide, please. And then these were a little bit more specific, right? Those earlier sections were more catch-alls, and then these were really specific.
Yeah.
Okay. And voyaging is a big sort of outstanding one that I want to just call special attention to. Again, with Snowbird's work with PVS directly, I want to defer to her on that voyaging component specifically. Okay, next slide, please.
Healing arts would include Ho'oponopono too.
It's for our discussion.
Okay. I think my screen changed.
Okay. Yeah, I went up. There it is.
I thought I pushed a button.
Oh, we're under Ilihia's power.
I'm glad to see Ohana in there. Especially knowing that we have our Ahakane, Ahawahine, and we have, the Aho'opio. So
might I suggest a definition for Ho'oponopono? Do we want to try to make it defined as like, I don't know if conflict resolution is too Western of a term that's not directly relatable, but I think many cultures have some process of conflict resolution. And I think in the climate that we're in today globally, that a discussion around how we resolve conflict in the Pacific would be important.
Yeah.
We can even put hula under this, Yakalani.
Totally. Circle.
Yeah, I mean, all of this kind of healing arts, Hi'uvai, and and halal, maybe, I don't know.
Well, I've been involved in studies for hula and health for over a decade, and we're just starting our new one, which is hula to address Alzheimer's, dementia. It's pretty awesome work. Anyway, you don't need to put it in there, but it is a
good
coming together of science and culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think if we get back up on the balcony, I want to pull us up again. Yeah. When I think about the things that will make this festival unique or transformative or innovative, I think in particular, these healing arts and ohana categories are probably the ones that have a lot of relevance to the time. And who knows, 2024, we might be in a completely different planet. Aliens might have landed by then. I think for where we're at now, at least in our planning, that those are things that are going to help us stand out and that are relevant and give us tools as a regional strategy. I think about Kalakaua often in his use of diplomacy to try to raise the level of, Moana Nui Akea being a recognized nation state, and how he tried to encourage others to kind of walk that path too. Yeah.
So Ilihi, if we keep hula there, then I would put something about combining cultural practice with science, something like that. Might not be the right words, but that's kind of the idea, with hula being a healing art and not just a traditional dance form.
So just a point for us to clarify, would that be something that we take up as a symposium under dance?
Yes.
Or do we take this up as, I think, a broader category of what you're talking about, Auntie, of that merging or meeting of traditional and Western practices more generally? And maybe hula is one example of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
Yep.
I think that gives a little bit more room for the other guys, right? If we were to use hula as the bucket, the other folks in other places may not have that same thing, but I think if we could call out cultural practices generally for wellness or for where they meet.
Hula the hula work that we do can come under that category.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Yep. And I am thinking of more of like symposiums to share the work we've done with the other countries and nations in the Pacific, because they can probably do similar work in their countries and, discover this aspect of what they already do.
Yeah, great. Any other thoughts on these practices? Okay, I'm going to move to our final slide of program offerings. It's our special events slide. And just to make sure we haven't missed any of these, opening and closing, our Ava ceremony. We've talked about fashion and potentially the pageant. Were there any others?
You didn't want to add anything else to the cultural practice or the other? Where's the Huki Ulua and Huki Kumu practices? No, only playing.
That's up to you.
That's not on the official agenda. Sounds organic.
That's the network weaving kuleana.
Network weaving, aye, polole.
No, looks good.
Okay. And like I said, we'll, Auntie, to respond to your sort of question, we'll go ahead and throw this back out as a Word doc again with today's edits for everybody, and that'll be this meeting's homework.
Great, sounds good.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, next one we want to roll into is going to go ahead and be the program schedule. Last time we created sort of the big boulder pieces. We've turned this into one big slide. Again, Auntie, we have it as a Word doc as well if that's easier. But I'd like us to finalize this program schedule, at least in these big boulder chunks. That way we have a structure then to build on. These could be our posts, if you will. And then we can sort of fill in from here.
Yeah, and then
bigger.
Festival Village Open should go through, through day 10. So the lower, I just missed it. Yeah. Oh, that's what that is. That's what that Festival Village is. Okay, leave it. It's fine, nearly here. It's totally fine. I got it.
Any edits to the big events? Some people have described this like a circus tent, and the big pole events are the ones we've listed here. We fill in the other stuff.
I think for the youth ambassador too, one thought was to have it 2 days where one day would be outside and one day would be inside to do some of the different types of work. Is that possible?
We can create anything we want as a commission together.
And would you want it earlier on day 2 and 3, perhaps?
That sounds good too, to be honest. Yeah, Auntie.
Because then they're meeting at the beginning, and then they'll have the whole rest of the festival to do stuff with each other. And also, I think part of this Youth Ambassador Summit was what they're wanting to go out into the communities, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, I know Ulupo would love to host them, and probably Pie and probably Ma'o Farms. And that's exactly what I think they were looking for. So if they meet early, then they'll have the other days to put in those kinds of events. Just my thoughts.
No, kako. Thank you, Auntie, for that.
So, Monty, you're talking day 1, day 2?
Aye.
Okay.
Other than that,
Aoya.
Okay. Last call. This is going to be the schedule.
Okay, quick.
Okay, Senator, turning it back over to you for approval.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Kalani, for the great work in getting us through this. Everybody, let's, again, we'll do a vote to adopt this with the understanding that as we need to revise, we will revise. So I will take a motion then to adopt this program schedule.
motion made, motion moved, so moved.
Thank you, Monty. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll let Rep second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Okay, if not, let me take the vote. I vote aye. Kalani Kanana.
Aye.
Mapuana de Silva.
Sorry, Kako Ovo.
Aye, mahalo. Rep Onishi.
Aye.
Monty McCumber.
Aye.
Jamie Lum.
Aye. Aye.
Anna Hein.
Aye.
Okay, I think we got all the commissioners. Motion is adopted. Thank you, everyone.
Yay,
And back to you, Kalani.
Can I make a comment before we go on?
Sure.
In the middle of this voting, I remembered that Kapolai and her work with Awaiaulu and looking at they were looking at through the Hawaiian language newspapers all of the political things that were happening, and she discovered that when they want to vote for something, they say kako'o, not I. So that's a nice thing for us to adopt, to use kako'o, which is your yes vote in a traditional way. Just wanted to add that.
If you also, it's out of print now, but there was a Lula Halavai book that was also put out and adopted before Robert's Rules of Order were even adopted. So the Hawaiian meetings rules were actually adopted prior to Robert's.
Yeah, and we have a copy of that. We just recently republished, right?
Yeah.
So to second a motion would be Kako'o Wau Pilanui. I second the motion.
Say it again, Jacob, please.
Kako'o Wau Ikela Noi. Or Noi'i.
I support that request. Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Awesome.
Mahalo.
Okay, everybody, take a deep breath, a deep diaphragmatic breath. We're gonna move to venues. Venues slide, please. So what we've confirmed between the last meeting and this meeting today is that all of these venues are available. In regards to the city venues, they're not able to be booked at this time, so they're by default available because you don't book 4 years in advance. And then obviously we've confirmed with Iolani Palace as well as the Convention Center that all of these are available. So what I want to do as a temperature feeler today is, are we ready to vote or decide, or should we wait? We have a little bit of time on these. I'm wondering, and this is just my own individual wondering, is before we make formal decisions on venue, should we take a little time to work in our kuleana areas, kind of get into the weeds a little bit, see what we need and what the needs of our events or venues are, and then back them into a decision on these major venues?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And I think we went over this part several times too, but I know that not just location, but we talked about the festival village in terms of function. And I know for the other members that the ability to sell their handicrafts is probably their biggest requirement for Festival Village, and then followed by some other considerations.
Okay. Any other thoughts? And I also want to call on you in particular as envoy.
So I did answer about 4 years is a little bit in advance for the city. And let Malia know that it was a little bit early for us. Typically we wait till maybe a year or two out. With that said, I think I absolutely hear Commissioner McCumber's suggestion, and that those were things that were slight issues before, right? Which was like the ability for people internationally to be selling on the grounds, or us sort of having to Shirakia style things, where we sort of work that out for them, things like that. Or whether or not maybe that's, I don't know if it's too in the weeds for you guys or what, but a question of whether or not that was something that people didn't want. Was, did people not want to sort of split it up where you could buy things in the convention center, but have, because they're in such close proximity to either Ala Moana or Alawai, and then be able to have the festival village either in Ala Moana or on the promenade or something like that. I know there was some talk about not wanting to split that up either, because some of the delegations come very thin, or some of those other aspects could totally go into making the decision about whether you want the festival village in a different place. So just sort of wanted to put those things out there. 4 years out, we're good with availability, but then sort of feasibility comes next in sort of what's the best case scenario and what you guys want. So yeah, but happy to look into whatever options you would like looked into. Let me know.
Thanks, Noi. So what I'm hearing, and if there's anybody else, please chime in, but I'm hearing we should probably kind of wait. Let's spend some time in our areas of Kuleana, figure out what our needs are. And then after that sort of needs assessment is done, now that we've gotten closer to our program offerings, sorry, that's another layer to this, right? So maybe as an order of operations, we should finalize program offerings with Snowbird next meeting as a goal. And then we can finalize some time, maybe, so here's what I'm thinking. December, we do offerings and finalize in our December meeting. In January, then we spend that as some committee work time, and maybe do a check-in meeting in the new year. And then by February, we'll have had some time to regroup after the holidays and after spending some time in our Kuleana areas, and then target February as our decision date on venues. Does that give us a little bit of a roadmap? Okay, any opposition to that?
Sounds good
or
to me.
further discussion? Okay, note takers, please capture that. It all came out of my brain at once and I didn't remember it. Thanks. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the logo as our next point of discussion. If you'll recall, the last time we were talking about building out that brand family and what that might look like. I wanna say that what we have prepared for today's discussion is more just for us to view and sort of imagine what it could be. By no means is it final. Is that a Sam Shankus? Hi, Sam. Was that Sam? Anyway, Monty, having a meeting over there.
I'm sorry.
Give Sam our aloha. Hi, Sam.
Hi.
Sounds good.
Okay. But anyway, the logos that we're going to present today are an addition to what we sort of talked about the last time. We took the middle one, built it out. We laid it out in a couple different shapes and colors and layouts so that we can take a look at those today. By no means are these final. Again, these are to help us conceptualize where we could go. And they're also dependent upon things like the program offerings that we decide and other things for us to get to that final sort of look. But Ilya, can we go ahead and pull up slide 15, please? So again, we took the middle design that we had sort of agreed on more generally, and we laid it out a couple of different ways. One is a horizontal, one is a more vertical layout on the right. Reactions, thoughts?
Which one again? Which one? You said the one in the middle, Kalani.
Yeah, our last meeting.
No, which one is that? See one on the top, on the bottom, and on the side.
No, so Mihana, in the last meeting, we had a different slide that had 3 variants. So we took that one to create these. Sorry.
Oh, so this is the, okay, so it's the same logo, just with different words. Okay.
Yep.
I see. Okay.
Because if that last meeting we had, one of the options was just the sail, the other one had the circle, the middle one didn't have the circle. And then so we took the consensus or the majority and we took this. And then Ilya, can we transition to slide 16 and maybe we can toggle back and forth over time, but these are other ways that it could be laid out and treated depending on, credentialing or events or by color. The circle for social media might be important, or like the tabs on websites. Again, this is just sort of a beginning place for us.
Yeah, looks good.
I really like it. But I think I would nix the rainbow.
Well, it might have a specific use.
Yeah, it might. we can give a rainbow to the youth.
The pageant, yeah.
I like what you guys have done so far. Do you have is this it? Do you have more?
Yeah, it's the 2 slides. We wanted to, before we went too far, we wanted to see what, where we didn't want to go too far down a path, I guess is the way to say it.
I like everything that you present.
I think, Kalani, what you've shown us here is that it can be used in different forms and different styles. So, like badge, something on the folder, a book, online, and it can be, it could be one specific symposium. You have a special one. It could be, you're part of your credential for only this media, etc. But you showed us how the different uses can go. So I like that. I just have a question about font and all of that. You guys thought about, that's been thought about here, right?
Yeah, and again, we're totally open, right? So if you guys want to play with a less traditional font, we can do that too. We figured we'd stick with something easy that's not custom, so that if we have to change stuff or adapt it, it's a loaded font that's in Adobe that's readily accessible.
Which one is this?
Ilya, which font is this? I don't know if
I can't get back to look at that without taking you guys off screen share.
Okay. Well, anyway, it looks good, and as long as we can add in the diacriticals, it's built into the font package.
I like the more traditional, less fonts, because then the petroglyph and the simplicity of everything is what catches my eye instead of looking at the writing and the picture that creates as well. I didn't say it very clearly, but I like that. Can we look at slide 15 again, please? I just want to see it again. So we could actually use all of these, right, Kalani?
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking of choosing one as the main one, or they're all pretty much the same thing and can be interchanged, right?
Ideally, we'd want to get to one, and it's the logo. And once we get to the one, then we can build out like what you saw on slide 16. Essentially, what you try to do is you try to have one that's a horizontal orientation, a vertical, one for an icon, And then we'd figure out ways to apply brand guidelines, right? So that there's consistency across events or orgs or credentials. We would build that out. But effectively, these ones on slide 15, we'd sort of have to pick one. And that's like the logo.
I like the top left.
Me too.
Kako'ovo.
I think we just, anybody, other commissioners have Mana'o? Or declare it the winner.
Okay. Ilya and note takers, if you guys can be sure to pull out the top left one as a separate slide, and we'll go ahead and submit that in the handout for the next meeting. And we should agendize deciding on the logo if you folks are comfortable.
Well, I'm comfortable deciding now. Are you guys, the rest of the commissioners?
I think I'd rather wait till next meeting when Snow and Misty.
Yes.
Well,
Oh, yeah, of course. Sorry, I didn't think about that.
big deal.
Yeah.
And then I think what will help with that too is if we say next meeting we're deciding on X and Y, show up. If you don't show up, then you let us decide.
I like that. Thank you.
Okay, Ilya, can you flash slide 14 for Mihana as well? Mihana, Auntie Mapu provided us a little bit of the description of where the logo came from. It's the one that Uncle Kihei created for the Palau Festival, if I'm not mistaken. But that's the sort of brief Mana'o.
It was for New Caledonia in 2000.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Mihana, we'll send this to you too so you have it later.
Mahalo.
Any other thoughts on logo?
Excellent job. And I think, we'll have that as a deciding vote on the next agenda. Maybe instead of us waiting for the minutes, if you can do one thing and have this shot to us, so we can have it before us as we contemplate.
Okay, Jamie, I'll work with you and Scott. And I'll make sure that our team, so Maka and Didi, if you guys can make sure we pull out the two things, the logo slide that we're going to decide on, as well as the programming definitions. And then I think those were the two that we were going to vote on for December. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll send those out today. So Didi and Maka, while we're in the background talking, if you guys can work on those two things and send it over to Jamie.
Mahalo.
No, thank you. If not, I think this is pretty much wrapping up what I had planned to discuss today for our facilitation. That takes us through agenda item 8. And Senator, I'd like to turn it over to you for agenda items 9 and on.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Kalani, and your team for doing such a wonderful job and getting us to this point. So I'm going to take a public comment again. We're opening it up again so that people can, they want to comment on what we've talked about. They have an opportunity. So anyone in the general public wishing to provide comment, please let me know and give us your name and your organization. Okay, I'm going to ask one more time. Anybody in the public wishing to testify? Okay. I don't see anyone, so we'll move on then. We'll go to the next. Yes.
You should probably check your phone. Well, they're not able to Facebook on, right? So
right. So they'll see this as a recording later, and then
later.
For those watching the recording, when we get to the next meeting, you can comment up front on that one. Sorry about that. Okay. Jacob, any suggestions for the next meeting date?
After Thanksgiving, possibly, maybe December 1st or December that week.
The beginning part of December, yeah.
I know it's getting into the holiday season, so I know folks are gonna get busy. I mean, I think one more meeting before the new year might be good.
I like the 1st or the 8th if people are available.
Let me look at the 1st and let me look at the 8th.
Both days work well for me.
You know what? Let's try for the first, because I think what's going to happen is all of our calendars are going to get really booked in December. Does that work for you guys?
Not because we can't have parties anyway. First works for me.
Well, we're suggesting for Thanksgiving and for Christmas is celebrate with your family in your bubble
And zoom in the rest.
and zoom in the rest.
And may I suggest that we also confirm with Snow and Misty before we finalize that date to make sure all commissioners are available if possible?
Okay,
Can we
I
say,
can do.
Jamie, thank you. Is that okay, Senator?
Yeah, I think what we need to do here is pick a date, and then if it works for them, it does. If it doesn't, then how do we do it? Because we have to pick a date now, right? Or we could, Jamie.
We
There's
have
a
time. We gotta post 1 week before.
so
Yeah,
before we post.
so if
Okay.
you can just let me know, yeah, if they let me know within the next,
Week.
24 hours or so.
Okay.
Okay.
What time are we looking at on that day? What
think
was
it's
the
open.
time that
You guys
Huh?
want to try like early, like 10,
I have a 10:30.
10:30? How's about 11? Oh no, what time is your 10:30? Probably 11:30.
11:30 on call.
You guys want to do 11:30, or you want to do like we did today, 1 o'clock?
I can do either.
What works for you, Mehana?
1 o'clock is good for me.
Okay, let's do one.
1 is good for me as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you
Let's
good?
do.
Replenish good with 1 o'clock?
Okay. All right. Let's tentatively. Well, we'll work it out. But right now, 1 o'clock on December 1st. On Tuesday, December 1st is the next meeting.
And then, Senator, real quick on that item for 1 o'clock, and I recommend that we end at 3.
Okay.
And if we pout early like today, we pout early. But I'm trying to shave it down, right? So my thinking is as we've got the bigger decisions out of the way, our meetings can get a little bit shorter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's try for 2:30 then, because we ended at 2:30 today.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That helps us to have a goal.
Yes.
Okay. And then anybody have anything to add before we adjourn?
No, just my thanks to my team and each of you.
Hi, mahalo.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Kalani, for your team and everyone that works so hard. And for all the commission members, we've accomplished a huge amount of work in the last 4 meetings. So, congratulations to all of you for that hard effort. Okay, if there's nothing else, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all, and we'll see you on the 1st.
Aloha, everybody.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Everybody,
Mahalo.
aloha.